The morning sun was bright as Malik walked down the busy street. He carried a brown envelope in his hand. Inside it was a check that he needed to deposit. The check was large and it meant a lot to him. It was not only money, it was proof of years of hard work. Malik was dressed in simple clothes. He wore a plain shirt and trousers. He looked like an ordinary man going about his day. No one would guess that he was a man of great success. Malik liked to live simply. He did not show off his wealth. He believed respect came not from clothes or cars, but from actions. He entered the tall glass building of the city bank. The floor was shining. The counters were lined with customers and the air smelled of fresh polish. Malik waited in line like everyone else. His turn came and he walked up to the counter with a polite smile. Behind the counter sat Mr. Harris, the bank manager. Mr. Harris was known for being proud and strict. He looked at people from head to toe before he even spoke. His eyes quickly scanned Malik's simple clothes and a frown formed on his face. "Yes, what do you want?" Mr. Harris asked in a cold voice. Malik placed the envelope on the counter and said, "I want to deposit this check into my account." Mr. Harris raised his eyebrows. He pulled out the check and looked at the amount. His eyes widened for a moment, but then he narrowed them again. It was a very large sum, one that ordinary people rarely carried. "Where did you get this check?" Mr. Harris asked sharply. "It is mine," Malik answered calmly. Mr. Harris shook his head. "You must be mistaken. This kind of money does not belong to someone like you. Do you even have an account here?" "Yes, I do," Malik said, his tone still steady, but Mr. Harris did not believe him. He held the check between his fingers, looked at it again, and laughed lightly. Then, in front of Malik, he tore the check in half and dropped it into the small trash bin beside his chair. Malik's eyes did not widen. His face did not twist in anger. He simply stood still and watched. He knew something that Mr. Harris did not. He knew that his silence now would carry greater weight later. The people in the bank turned their heads. They had seen the act. Some gasped. Some shook their heads. But no one said anything to Mr. Harris. He was the manager, and his word was treated like law in the branch. Mr. Harris leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "Next time, do not waste my time with false papers. Go open a small account somewhere else. This bank is not for everyone." Malik looked at him for a moment, then gave a small nod. He turned around and walked out of the bank quietly. His steps were calm, his shoulders straight. He was not a man defeated. Outside the bank, the air was fresh and cool. Malik stood for a moment looking at the tall glass building. He thought about how quickly people judged others by clothes, by skin, by silence. He thought about how Mr. Harris had just burned his own chance to learn a lesson in kindness. Malik took out his phone and made a call. On the other end, a voice answered, "Yes, sir?" Malik said softly, "Prepare a meeting with the board this afternoon. We need to visit the Citibank branch. I want all directors present." "Yes, sir," the voice replied with respect. Malik ended the call. His eyes were steady, his heart calm. He was not just a customer with a check. He was the silent owner of the entire bank chain. The building he had just walked out of was his. The employees inside, including Mr. Harris, were working under his name. As he walked away, a small smile touched his lips. He was not angry. He was patient. He knew that sometimes the best lesson came not from words spoken in the heat of the moment, but from truth revealed at the right time. The city moved around him, busy and unaware of the scene that had just taken place. But Malik knew that by evening the whole branch would know who he really was, and Mr. Harris would learn the cost of disrespect. The afternoon sun was lowering in the sky when Malik reached the main office of the bank. This was not an ordinary branch. It was the headquarters where the board of directors gathered for important decisions. The tall building stood like a symbol of power and wealth in the middle of the city. Inside the boardroom, a long table of polished wood stretched across the room. Around it sat the directors, men and women in suits, their faces serious. They were waiting for Malik, the quiet man they all respected. When Malik entered, everyone stood up. They greeted him with warm words and nods. He was the majority owner of the bank chain, the one whose vision had built it from a small company into a national name. Malik raised his hand gently. "Please sit down," he said. His voice was calm, but it carried authority. The meeting began. Papers were passed around. Reports were read. But soon Malik lifted his hand again. "Today I went to the Citibank branch on Green Street," Malik said. His words made the directors pause. "Yes, sir," replied one of the directors. "That is one of our busiest branches." Malik nodded. "I went there to deposit a check. The amount was large. The manager of that branch, Mr. Harris, looked at me and decided that I was not worthy to hold such a check. He tore it in front of me and threw it away. The directors exchanged shocked looks. Some leaned forward, unable to believe what they were hearing. "He tore the check?" one of them asked. "Yes," Malik said. "And he told me not to waste his time. He judged me by my appearance, not by the truth." The room grew quiet. Every person at the table knew that Malik lived simply. He did not wear expensive suits or drive flashy cars. Yet every brick of the bank building was linked to his effort and vision. One director spoke softly. "Sir, this is serious. A manager cannot behave like that with any customer. To do it with you is beyond imagination." Malik leaned back in his chair. His eyes were calm, but there was strength behind them. "It is not about me," he said. "It is about respect. If he can treat the owner this way, then he must treat ordinary customers even worse." "This cannot continue," another director agreed. "Customers are the life of a bank. Without them, there is no business. A manager who insults customers is like a captain who drills holes in his own ship." Malik gave a small nod. "That is why I called this meeting. Tomorrow I will visit that branch again. I want the directors with me. We will not tell them in advance. We will see the truth with our own eyes." The directors agreed. Their faces showed both respect and concern. They knew Malik was not a man of empty words. He always acted with purpose. The meeting closed and the directors left with thoughtful minds. Malik stayed behind for a while, looking out the window at the busy city below. He thought about how people often wore masks of pride, how quick they were to judge, and how easily they forgot the value of kindness. That night, Mr. Harris sat in his office at the Green Street branch. He was proud of himself for showing what he thought was strength earlier. In his mind, he believed he had protected the bank from a false check. He did not know the truth. He did not know the man he had insulted was the very one who paid his salary. He leaned back in his chair, writing in his daily log. He wrote, "One man came with a large check. I stopped him. He did not belong here." He felt confident that his actions were correct. The guards locked the doors. The cleaners swept the floor. The day ended, and the lights of the branch went dark. But the next morning would not be the same as any other. The next morning, the truth would walk through the glass doors of the branch. The directors would sit in his office, and Malik would stand before him not as a simple customer, but as the owner of everything around him. The city was still sleeping when Malik rose early, dressed again in his simple clothes, and prepared himself for the day. His patience was steady, his purpose clear. Respect was not just a word to him. It was the foundation of his life, his work, and his bank. Tomorrow was no longer just another day. It was the day a lesson would begin. The next morning was clear and bright. People filled the streets, hurrying to their offices, markets, and schools. The City Bank branch on Green Street opened its glass doors as usual. Customers lined up, clerks settled at their desks, and guards stood at the entrance. To everyone, it looked like an ordinary day, but it was not ordinary. Malik arrived at the branch with 5 directors of the bank. They did not come in shining cars with sirens or guards. They came quietly, each dressed simply, walking like regular visitors. The guards at the entrance greeted them without knowing who they were. Inside the branch, customers turned to look at the group. Malik walked at the front, his face calm, his step steady. The directors followed him closely, their eyes moving across the hall, watching everything. At the counter, clerks were busy counting cash, stamping forms, and answering questions. The atmosphere was filled with the usual sound of paper, pens, and low voices. Mr. Harris, the branch manager, sat in his glass office at the side of the hall. He noticed Malik first. His eyes narrowed. He remembered the simple man from yesterday. He remembered the torn check. His lips pressed together. He stepped out of his office and walked toward Malik with firm steps. "You again?" he said in a cold tone. "Did I not tell you yesterday not to waste my time here? Why have you come back?" The customers nearby turned their heads. Whispers started among them. The directors stood silently behind Malik, watching the scene unfold. Malik looked at Mr. Harris with steady eyes. "I came to finish what I started yesterday," he said. His voice was calm, without anger. Mr. Harris gave a small laugh. Finish what? Do you have another false check to show me? You should know by now this bank is not for people like you. The words hung heavy in the air. The customers frowned and some shook their heads, but still no one spoke up. The authority of a manager kept them silent. One of the directors stepped forward. His voice was sharp. Is this how you speak to every customer who comes here, Mr. Ain? Harris looked at him, confused. He had not recognized the director. To him, these were just companions of the simple man. He shrugged. I speak the truth. This man tried to cheat us yesterday with a check too large for his kind. I protected the bank. The director's face grew stern. He glanced at Malik, waiting for him to act. Malik turned toward the customers and clerks. His voice carried across the hall. I came here yesterday with a check. The manager tore it without reason. He judged me by appearance, not by proof. Today I return with witnesses because respect should not depend on clothes or faces. Respect must be given to every customer who enters this bank. The hall grew quiet. Every customer and every clerk stopped to listen. Mr. Harris frowned deeply. His pride was strong, and he did not like being challenged in front of others. This is nonsense, he said quickly. I am the manager. I decide what is right for this branch. If I say a check is false, then it is false. The second director stepped forward. His tone was cool. Do you understand who you are speaking to? Do you understand whose check you tore yesterday? Mr. Harris blinked. For the first time, his confidence shook. He looked at Malik more carefully. The man still wore simple clothes, but now he stood tall, with authority in his voice. The directors beside him were not ordinary men. Their eyes carried weight. Their posture showed power. Who are you? Mr. Harris asked slowly, his voice less sharp than before. Malik did not answer yet. He wanted the moment to grow. He wanted the lesson to take root. He looked around the hall, making sure every eye was on him. Then he said, I am not only a customer. I am the majority owner of this bank. The very chair you sit on belongs to me. Every desk, every wall, every coin in this branch exists under my name. Gasps filled the room. Customers looked at each other in shock. Clerks dropped their pens. Even the guards at the door froze in surprise. Mr. Harris turned pale. His mouth opened, but no words came. His pride melted away in an instant. He had torn the check of the man who owned the entire bank. Malik's eyes stayed calm. He did not shout. He did not raise his hand. His strength was in truth, not in noise. You tore my check, he said. But more than that, you tore the respect every customer deserves. Today, you will face the result of your actions. The directors nodded. The silence in the hall was deep. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. The entire hall stood silent after Malik's words. The sound of typing had stopped, papers lay untouched, and even the customers forgot about their own business. All eyes rested on Malik and Mr. Harris. The truth was now open, and no one could hide from it. Mr. Harris's face turned red, then pale. His lips trembled as he tried to speak. You are the owner? His voice shook as if he could not believe the man standing in simple clothes had such power. Malik gave a single nod. Yes, I built this bank with hard work and patience. I trusted my managers to protect its name with honesty and respect. But yesterday, in this very hall, you tore that trust into pieces. The directors stepped closer. One of them pointed at the employees and customers. Everyone here saw it. They saw how you insulted a man who came with a request. You judged him without checking the account. You destroyed a legal document. You forgot that a manager is a servant of service, not a ruler of people. The customers whispered among themselves. Some nodded, agreeing with the director's words. The clerks lowered their heads, ashamed that they had watched silently the day before. Mr. Harris swallowed hard. He tried to stand tall, but his voice was weak. I only wanted to protect the bank from fraud. Many false checks come here. I thought his was the same. I did not know who he was. Malik's calm voice cut through the room. You did not need to know who I was. Every person deserves respect. If you had treated me as a customer, you would have seen my account and the truth would have spoken for itself. But you let pride blind you. You believed appearance was stronger than honesty. The first director stepped forward. His voice carried authority. Mr. Harris, your actions have harmed the name of this bank. You insulted a customer, destroyed a check, and broke the trust that must stand at the heart of our work. What do you say in your defense? Mr. Harris lowered his eyes. He had no answer. His hands shook slightly as he held them behind his back. The silence grew heavier. Malik turned to the employees who sat behind the counters. His voice was steady. Let this be a lesson. A bank is not made of walls or money. It is made of trust. Every person who walks through these doors must feel safe, respected, and valued. Without that, this bank is nothing. The clerks nodded quickly. Some even whispered apologies, though they had not been the ones to tear the check. Malik looked back at Mr. Harris. As the owner of this bank, I cannot allow such behavior to continue. Today, in front of everyone here, I relieve you of your position. Gasps filled the room again. Mr. Harris's knees seemed to weaken. He opened his mouth as if to beg, but the words did not come. He knew there was no escape. The decision was final. One of the directors called for the assistant manager, a quiet woman named Maria, who had served the bank faithfully for many years. She walked forward, nervous but steady. Malik looked at her kindly. Maria, you will take charge of this branch until we appoint a permanent manager. I trust you to lead with honesty and care. Let every customer who comes here find in you the respect they deserve. Maria's eyes widened with surprise. She placed her hand on her chest and bowed slightly. Thank you, sir. I will not fail you. The customers began to clap softly, and the sound grew until the entire hall echoed with applause. They were not clapping only for Malik. They were clapping for fairness, for truth, for the reminder that respect could still win in a world full of pride. Mr. Harris lowered his head and walked slowly out of the hall. The guards opened the doors for him, but no one met his eyes. His pride had carried him high, but his lack of respect had brought him low. Malik watched him leave without anger, only with calm. Then he turned back to the people. Remember this moment. It is not about me. It is about every person who enters this bank. Treat them with honor. Serve them with honesty. That is the only way this bank can stand strong. The clerks nodded. Firmly, the customers smiled with relief, and Maria stood tall at her new post. The branch felt different now. The air of fear had gone, replaced by hope. Malik and the directors left the branch together. The sunlight outside was warm on their faces. Malik walked with steady steps, knowing that the lesson was planted. Respect had been restored, and the future of the branch was brighter than before. The news of what happened at the Green Street branch spread quickly across the city. By the next morning, the story was on every lip. Customers told their families, clerks told their friends, and even shopkeepers near the bank shared the tale with excitement. People spoke in markets, tea stalls, and offices. Did you hear? One man said to another. The owner of the entire bank chain came dressed like an ordinary man, and the manager tore his check. Another replied, and the owner did not shout or fight. He came back the next day with the directors, and in front of everyone he showed the truth. The story carried power because it was not only about a rich man owning a bank. It was about fairness, about respect, and about the reminder that no one should judge another by appearance. In the Green Street branch, the atmosphere was new. Customers who entered looked around with fresh hope. The clerks smiled more, greeted customers kindly, and tried to help with patience. They remembered Malik's words. A bank was built on trust, not on pride. Maria, the new acting manager, worked tirelessly. She did not raise her voice. She listened to customers and guided her team with calm authority. Her leadership showed a clear difference. Even longtime customers noticed the change. The branch feels warm now, an old man said as he left the counter. Before, it felt heavy. Malik himself did not return immediately to the branch. He wanted the staff to grow on their own. But the directors visited often, checking records, ensuring that every action carried respect. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, Mr. Harris sat alone in his home. His pride was broken. He replayed the scene again and again in his mind. He remembered tearing the check, the laughter in his voice, the silence in Malik's eyes, and then the shocking truth revealed before everyone. He felt shame burn inside him. For years he had thought that his position gave him power. He had forgotten that power without respect was nothing. Now he had lost not only his job but also the trust of everyone around him. Neighbors whispered about him. Old friends avoided his calls. His pride had left him empty. Back at the headquarters, Malik sat with the directors in another meeting. They discussed the progress of the bank. One director said, "Sir, the lesson at Green Street has reached every branch. Employees are speaking differently now. They are careful. They greet customers with more respect." Another added, "Even customers are praising the change. Some who left the bank earlier are returning. They say they feel safe again." Malik listened quietly, then said, "Good. But let this not be a moment that fades. Respect should not shine only when a mistake is caught. It must live every day in every action. We must train our managers to remember this truth." The directors agreed. Plans were made for new programs that would teach employees about service, fairness, and patience. Malik insisted that the training should not only speak about rules, but also about human values. While this was happening, a journalist wrote an article about the event. The headline read, "Bank Owner Teaches Lesson of Respect at Green Street Branch." The article told the story in simple words, but its message was strong. It reached readers across the city and beyond. Schools discussed it in classrooms. Teachers said to students, "See, this is why we must not judge by looks. A person's worth is not in clothes or skin, but in honesty and action." In small homes, parents told the story to their children as a bedtime tale. In offices, workers spoke about it during lunch breaks. The lesson had grown larger than the bank itself. Malik remained quiet as the story spread. He did not seek fame. He did not appear in front of cameras or give long speeches. He simply continued his work, steady and calm. For him, the lesson was not about his pride, but about building a culture of respect. At the Green Street branch, a little boy came with his mother one day. They stood at the counter to deposit a small amount. The clerk smiled warmly and helped them with care. The boy looked around at the shining hall and said, "Mother, is this the bank where the kind owner came?" His mother nodded with a smile. "Yes, my son. And remember, kindness is greater than power." That is what he showed. The boy's eyes grew wide with wonder. For him, the story was not only about a man and a bank. It was about the kind of world he hoped to see. And for Malik, though he did not hear the boy's words, the seed of that hope was exactly why he had acted with patience instead of anger. The seed was now growing across the city. Days passed, but the story of the Green Street branch did not fade. Instead, it grew stronger. Newspapers continued to write about it, and social groups used it as an example of dignity and fairness. Many people wanted to meet Malik. Some wanted him to appear at events, others wanted his face on posters, and a few wanted to use his name for their own gain. One morning, Malik sat quietly in his office at the headquarters. A director entered with a stack of letters. "Sir," the director said, "these are invitations. Schools, organizations, and even political groups are asking you to speak. They want you to stand on their stage and tell your story." Malik looked at the letters with calm eyes. He shook his head slowly. "The lesson is not about me. It is about respect. If I stand on stages and speak about myself, then the meaning will shrink. The story must belong to the people, not to my name." The director nodded with respect. "Still, sir, some will keep pushing. They will want to turn your lesson into their tool." Malik smiled softly. "Then our answer will be the same each time. We act, we do not boast. We change, we do not shout. That is enough." While Malik chose silence, the city buzzed with noise. In cafes and parks, people debated the story. Some said it showed how dangerous pride could be. Others said it proved that wealth and humility could live together. Many agreed on one point: respect was the real treasure. At the Green Street branch, Maria continued her steady work. She guided the clerks, listened to customer concerns, and treated everyone with equal care. The branch grew busier than before as people came not only for banking, but also to see the place where the lesson had been given. One afternoon, a group of reporters came to the branch. They wanted to interview Maria. They asked her, what was it like to see the owner reveal himself that day? What was it like to watch the manager fall silent? Maria answered with simple words. I learned that pride can destroy a person and respect can lift a whole place. That is all I can say. She did not try to make herself important. She only repeated the truth she had seen. Meanwhile, Mr. Harris lived in regret. He avoided the streets where his old branch stood. He avoided old colleagues. His days were heavy, filled with silence and memories. Sometimes he thought of writing to Malik, asking for forgiveness, but pride and shame kept his hand still. Malik, however, did not think of revenge. In his meetings with the directors, he spoke not of Mr. Harris, but of the future. He said, let us build training for all branches. Let us remind our workers that service is more than a duty. It is an honor. The directors agreed, and soon plans were made. Workshops were arranged. Trainers visited branches to speak about respect, patience, and fairness. Employees were encouraged to share stories of kindness they had given or received. The effect spread quickly. Clerks in small towns began greeting farmers with warm smiles. Managers in busy cities began spending more time with ordinary customers, helping them understand forms and accounts. The bank's reputation grew stronger, not because of its money but because of its respect. Outside the bank world, leaders of other businesses also noticed. Some shop owners began to tell their workers, serve every customer with equal care. Do not judge by clothes or coins. Even schools taught the lesson, reminding students not to mock or judge others. Though Malik kept away from public speeches, his name was spoken everywhere. Some people wanted him to step forward and shine as a hero, but he refused every stage. He told his directors, if people remember me, let it be for what I did, not for what I said about myself. The directors admired him more for this choice. They knew that real strength was not in shouting, but in living the truth quietly. One evening, Malik walked through a park near his home. Families sat on benches, children played with kites, and an old man sold roasted corn at the corner. Malik listened to the laughter of the children and the chatter of the people. He heard one young boy telling his friend, my father says the owner of the bank taught everyone a lesson. He says we must never laugh at people who look simple because they may be greater than we know. Malik smiled as he walked. The story no longer belonged to him. It belonged to the people, to the children, to the future. That was exactly how he wanted it to be. Weeks passed and the Green Street branch had changed completely. Maria led with calm confidence and the clerks worked with care. Customers smiled more and felt respected. Malik's lesson had taken root in the branch, and news of it continued to spread across the city. One afternoon, Malik decided to visit the branch again. He wanted to see the progress himself and check that the lesson had truly been understood. This time, he did not come with directors. He walked in quietly, as he always did, wearing his simple shirt and trousers. Inside, the branch looked orderly. Clerks greeted him politely, and Maria walked up with a warm smile. Sir, it is good to see you again. The branch has been busy today, and everyone is following the rules you taught, she said. Malik nodded. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. You have done well, Maria. Keep leading with honesty and care. As Malik and Maria spoke, a man entered the branch nervously. It was Mr. Harris. He had requested to meet Malik. For weeks he had thought about his actions. Pride and shame had kept him at home, but now he realized that facing the truth was better than hiding from it. When Malik noticed Mr. Harris, he did not frown or show anger. He simply nodded and gestured for him to come closer. Mr. Harris's steps were hesitant and his head was lowered. He looked around at the smiling clerks in the calm hall, remembering the moment when pride had clouded his judgment. Sir, Mr. Harris said, his voice quiet. I came to apologize. I acted foolishly and without respect. I judged you by your clothes and appearance. I destroyed your check and insulted you. I see now how wrong I was. Malik looked at him steadily. He could feel the sincerity in the man's voice. Your apology is heard, Mr. Harris. It takes courage to admit a mistake. What matters now is what you do with it. Mr. Harris nodded. I understand, sir. I have reflected on my actions. I would like to serve again, not as a manager, but in a position where I can learn and follow the values you teach. Malik considered his words carefully. If you truly mean to change, then you may return in a new role. You will work under Maria's guidance. Learn patience, respect, and service before taking any leadership position again. Mr. Harris bowed slightly. Thank you, sir. I promise to follow your guidance and to serve with honor. Malik smiled softly. Remember, respect is earned, not forced. Service is shown by action, not words. The past cannot be changed, but the future can be guided. Maria stepped forward. Mr. Harris, if you follow the rules and treat customers with care, you will have another chance. We all make mistakes, but the important thing is to correct them. Mr. Harris felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He realized that humility was stronger than pride. The lesson he had resisted was now part of his life. He knew he had a long path ahead, but he was willing to walk it. The clerks and customers watched silently. Many had heard the story of Malik and the torn check. Now, they saw its conclusion. Pride had fallen, respect had risen, and even a proud man could learn humility. Malik turned to Maria and the clerks. Keep this branch a place where every customer feels safe, every worker feels responsible, and every action reflects honesty. That is how a bank grows, not in money alone, but in trust. The branch felt different that day. It was not just a place for transactions. It was a place where lessons of respect, patience, and humility lived. Customers felt welcome. Clerks felt proud. Even Mr. Harris, who once acted foolishly, felt hope. As Malik left the branch, he walked through the busy street calmly. People passed by unaware of who he was, but he did not need recognition. The city had learned the lesson. The branch had learned the lesson, and even those who had fallen had learned. The true power of respect and honesty had been shown. Malik smiled to himself. A simple action, patience, and calm had changed many lives. That day, the story of the bank was complete, and its lesson would last for a long time. Months passed, and the story of the Green Street branch had become more than just a local tale. People across the city and even in nearby towns knew about the lesson Malik had taught. It was a story of respect, patience, and the power of humility. Malik continued his quiet life. He did not go to events or give interviews. He walked the city streets in his simple clothes, observing the world with careful eyes. To him, the lesson was not about fame, but about creating lasting change. The Green Street branch flourished. Maria led with skill and fairness, and the clerks followed her guidance. Customers came regularly, not just for banking, but to experience the kindness and respect that had become the branch's signature. Every person who entered felt valued, whether they brought a small deposit or a large check. Mr. Harris worked under Maria's supervision. At first, he struggled to adjust. Pride still lingered in his heart, and old habits returned in small ways. But day by day he learned. He listened carefully, treated customers with patience, and accepted guidance without argument. Slowly, he began to feel the satisfaction of doing right instead of doing only what he thought was powerful. Outside the bank, people shared the story with their children. Teachers used it as an example in schools. Parents reminded their children that every person, no matter how simple they appeared, deserved respect. The story spread kindness beyond the walls of the bank, touching hearts in ways Malik had quietly hoped for. One evening, Malik visited the park near his home. Families were enjoying the sunset, and children ran laughing across the grass. Malik saw a small group of children sitting under a tree, speaking about the story of the Green Street branch. "My father says," one boy told the others, "never judge someone by clothes. Respect everyone, even if they look simple." The owner of the bank taught everyone that. The children nodded seriously. Their young minds held the lesson clearly. Malik smiled quietly, unseen by the group. For him, the true measure of success was in the small acts of understanding that grew into lasting change. Back at the headquarters, Malik met with his directors to review progress. "Our banks are more than buildings and money," he said. "They are places where trust is built. Every employee must understand that kindness is stronger than pride and respect stronger than fear. That is how we grow not only as a business but as a community." The directors listened carefully. They saw the growth in branches across the city. Customer satisfaction was at its highest. Employees acted with care and responsibility. The reputation of the bank was stronger than ever, not because of advertisements or campaigns, but because of the lesson of respect that had started with a simple act. Mr. Harris approached Malik quietly during the meeting. His voice was calm. "Sir, I have learned much. I see now that patience, humility, and respect are more powerful than authority. I will continue to serve, and I am grateful for the chance to change." Malik nodded. "Your actions from now on will show the lesson you have learned. Words are easy, but true change is seen in how we treat others every day. The months went by and the story continued to influence people. Small shops, schools, offices, and even other banks spoke of the lesson. People treated each other with more care, remembering that a person's worth was not measured by wealth or appearance but by honesty, respect, and action. In the Green Street branch, Maria and her team worked tirelessly. The branch became a symbol of trust. Customers felt welcome, clerks acted responsibly, and even those who had made mistakes before, like Mr. Harris, learned to walk a better path. Malik continued his quiet life, walking the city streets, helping when needed, and observing the changes around him. The story had grown beyond him, beyond the bank. It was now part of the city's spirit, a lesson of kindness and respect that would last for generations. One morning, Malik stood at the top of a hill overlooking the city. The sunlight reflected off the buildings, the streets buzzed with life, and the Green Street branch was just a small dot among many. He smiled softly, knowing the lesson had taken root and that respect, humility, and patience would continue to grow, stronger than any pride, taller than any building, and brighter than any coin. The city had changed, and so had the hearts of many. Malik turned and walked down the hill. His steps were calm and steady. The lesson was complete, not with words shouted or actions forced, but with truth lived and respect shown.